Johnny here for Johnny's Car Care and Reviews, giving you the news from Ormond Beach. That's just north of Daytona Beach. We walked into Daytona just the other day, but today what we're going to be talking about, of course with your co-host Winston, what we're going to be talking about are the microchip shortages and the earthquake that happened affecting Renesas. That affected 3 of their plants. Now I've been waiting, that's old news, but the new news is what's actually going on, because I didn't want to produce this and just bring bad news that there's an earthquake and cause panic. We'll also be talking about some changes for Jeep, some very interesting motor choice coming up, and we're also going to be talking about F-150 and how it's affected by the microchip shortage. And we'll wrap this up with a little talk about really what needs to be done, because the microchip shortage is definitely illustrating some major problems, and this is in regards to economic stability and of course security. So let's put the pedal to the metal and jump right in. So Jeep with Stellantis is going to be presenting coming up the Stellantis Hurricane 3-liter inline 6. Now that's going to have twin turbo just like the F-150 Bronco. Multiple models use the 3.5 liter EcoBoost twin turbo, but that is an engine format that's in a V format, so an inline 6 from Jeep, from Stellantis. That's exciting. That could be an excellent engine, because traditionally inline 6s make for very reliable engines. Now I think in adding the turbos it'll make for an exciting engine, because it's rumored that horsepower is going to be above 400 horsepower. So just to give you an idea, Ford's 3-liter EcoBoost, like in the Ford Bronco Raptor, that has 400 horsepower and 415 pound-feet of torque. That's the general torque figure for the 3-liter EcoBoost, because it's also offered in the Explorer ST as well as the Lincoln Aviator. So different horsepower figures, sometimes from the same block depending on the model it comes from. But from the Stellantis inline 6, we're looking at over 400 horsepower and over 450 pound-feet of torque. So that will be a competitor to the 3-liter. Now the 3.5 liter EcoBoost and F-150, less so of a competitor, because that has 500 pound-feet of torque and 570 if you take it in the format that has an electric engine, so the hybrid format. So very interesting. It also has, with the 570 pound-feet of torque, when you have it hybrid, 500 pound-feet of torque, 5-liter EcoBoost is going to be a really tough one to beat. But the Bronco Raptor could potentially be, we'll have to see how the power figures, the official power figures, when they come out, occur for that inline 6 from Stellantis that should be offered in Jeeps. So we'll see if who gets it, which models get it. Will the Wrangler get it? Well, we'll wait and see. Now in further Ford news, we've got the F-150 coming out with a Roush model. Now that's not going to be its own dedicated model the way the Tremor is. And by the way, the Tremor, relatively, you could say relatively affordable at about $6,500 when you go with the 401. So that's an add-on to already the price of an XLT 302, and the 402, which is an add-on to a Lariat 502. Well, you're looking at a total, that as an option is $13,500, but adding it to a Lariat 502, the price isn't going to increase by 13. It's going to have about a $6,000 price increase. But that's not what I'm covering today. What I'm covering today is the news that Roush is going to be offering an F-150, but not as its own full-out dedicated model straight from factory. What you'll do is you'll pick up your F-150, and then you're going to send them the F-150 of your choice for them to modify it. So either an XLT 302 likely, or a 502, but the addition of Roushing it is going to be $18,500. So expensive, yes, but what you'll do for that, what you're going to get is a very unique suspension and a very unique look. Mind you, I think that comparatively speaking, the Tremor is a real bargain. Now in further F-150 news, Active Park Assist. Now that's the system that allows your Ford truck to park itself, either perpendicular or parallel, and it can also pull itself out of, let's say, a parallel parking spot. Some people use that. I think a lot of people don't use it, but it's going to be an option that you can choose to remove. And moving forward, I do suspect it's going to start falling off of packages as, you know, as standard. So I think, you know, 502 Lariat, when you go with the Copilot 360 2.0, I think with time, it's just not going to show up. All of this is being done in an effort to be able to continue the production line, continue to produce and deliver vehicles at Ford. So that's what's going on with the microchip issue. And there was a lot of worry, I believe it was March 16th now, that there was an earthquake in Japan, and Renesas, the world's largest microchip supplier, actually had 3 factories affected. Now, we did get news that one factory would be up, at least partially running, but I waited to bring this story out, and this is the huge news. I was worried that it could be months before they get the other 2 factories operational, but it looks like March 23rd is going to be their date for getting those 2 factories, the 2 remaining factories that had been closed, to get them up, running, and functional again. So the overall effect of this isn't going to be huge. It's not going to be disastrous. Yes, it's a week of production lost, but we're not talking about a month or months. So this shouldn't affect too badly us getting our F-150s, our Ford Mavericks. Now, speaking of, and of course, Ford Broncos, but speaking of Ford Mavericks, on the channel I've been showing, and also on Instagram, I've been showing a yellow XLT. What is that XLT? Well, that has spray and bed liner, and it's an XLT luxury pack. Ordered in November, delivered in March. So about 4 months for that to show up. That's not bad at all. Now, why did that only take 4 months to show up, even though it's a luxury package? Yes, microchips are in short demand. Luxury package does mean a delay, but EcoBoost has also meant anyone who has an EcoBoost, they have been coming in faster than the hybrids. Now, that's a twofold problem. The hybrids, there was a lot more demand for front-wheel drive truck than I'd say was expected. Even if you were to build 50% hybrid, 50% EcoBoost, the problem is that there's about 75% of the orders that are hybrid. About 3/4 of the orders were hybrids, and for the first original months that they were building Mavericks, September, October, and November, very few hybrids, extremely few hybrids were made back in September, October, November 2021. We're waiting on EPA numbers, but even once those EPA numbers came out, they still didn't start producing those hybrids at a 50-50 ratio. So I'm thinking maybe it's a matter of getting enough quality batteries that pass and are ready to be put into the hybrids. So I think there's a supply issue likely with the batteries. Of course, you make these contracts when you're a major company months and months and months in advance, and even though you have a contract, there's no promise that even what you ordered, that 100% of it will show up. So that's been a big problem these days. I just remember just shortly, early March, late February, Ford had 26 suppliers not bring them the amount that was stipulated and expected for that month's production. So that's something that we've got to deal with. Marie and I, current update is we ordered back July 15th or July 17th our XLT Maverick hybrid luxury package, nothing else other than the luxury package, and we still don't have a build date. Meanwhile, we see exact builds, but EcoBoost ordered, in November, and having those show up. So clearly, either not enough batteries or not enough electric motors. I'd say the electric motors are built in-house by Ford. I think there's good chances that it comes down to batteries, because even once the EPA numbers came out, we were waiting on those hybrids to start getting produced, and it's just recently that they're getting produced in more even numbers to EcoBoost. So there's a long line. We gotta catch up. But that brings me to comments of the week. And we will talk about, the global issue and microchips and all of this. But I do want to answer some important questions and some important comments that got left on the channel to really help us all out understand what's going on. So one comment was, Ford, sucks. I've gone off and bought, I've heard, a Honda CR-V. I've gone off and bought, a Dodge Ram 1500. And also part of those comments were, you know, Ford sucks, the Maverick is made in Mexico, so I've lost all interest. So I just want to point out, Ford, of all the automobile manufacturers, Ford creates the most jobs in the USA. So saying you're going to run off and buy another brand because, let's say, the Maverick is made in Mexico, and the funniest one I got was, you know, I'm buying a Ram 1500 instead. Well, the most 1500s, if not, I'm not sure if it's all, but most 1500s Ram trucks are made in Mexico. So that's something to keep in mind. And just because it's made in Mexico, the Maverick, doesn't mean it's going to be bad. Some very good vehicles have come out of that plant, such as the Ford Fusion, the Lincoln MKZ, way back in the day, the Escort, the Ford Escort. They've made some very good vehicles. And so far, the Bronco Sport, big magazines are, you know, like Consumer Reports, are liking how that Bronco Sport is built. So far, my parents are loving it. But, you know, when it comes down to today's global market, yeah, I promised I would talk about, you know, the complications. Globalization has created that no matter who you are, no matter what type of business you run, if it's a big business, you're going to be getting parts, especially for the automobile industry. Everyone is getting parts from all over. So even if you're assembled in the United States, there are parts coming from all over the world. Globalization has forced companies to really do business everywhere, and it causes countries to specialize. Well, the problem with that is it also causes countries to be, globalization causes countries to be extremely dependent, not independent, extremely dependent on one another. And this dependency on one another, well, it does remove a country's ability to put political sway and, you know, pressure on other countries to, you know, play by certain rules. So that has been a complication in the microchip process because, you know, in any conflict at any time, one of the first things a country can do is seize its own factories and make sure that certain countries don't get certain necessary components. Can you imagine how the last world conflict would have gone if airplanes, for example, needed microchips and couldn't get the microchips that were needed? So, you know, with globalization, in order to be competitive, you need to have, you know, price-wise, in order to be competitive and survive, you have to specialize, and you also have to send parts from all over. So when it comes down to it, I think Ford and other companies have a big choice ahead of them. They've got to choose who they're going to specialize with. Essentially, who are their, you know, you could say, trusted partners and allies. And that goes right down to economics, because economics are extremely important in regards to political sway, political power. And it's also really important that these countries, you know, it's very, very difficult for a country to be able to be completely dependent nowadays with globalization. And globalization really did occur from CEOs getting huge bonuses when they save money for a company. And how did they save money? Well, they saved money by sending out different part productions, production of different parts, assembly of certain things to other countries where labor costs less. Now, you know, we have a choice ahead of us. You can either say, I'm not going to buy a Ford Maverick, or I'm not going to buy a Ford product, even though they are the US's #1 job creator, job maintenance. They create the most jobs in the US of the automobile manufacturers. You can choose not to buy from them for the fact that the Maverick's made in Mexico, but I don't necessarily think it's the best, you know, it's necessarily, I don't think it's a good reason to not buy a Ford Maverick. If Ford's going to want to compete with vehicles coming out of China, and also in the future, and currently compete with vehicles coming from Asia, they need to figure out, you know, what are we going to specialize? Is it going to be, you know, high-paying tech jobs, engineering jobs, designing jobs, some important complex assembly being done in the United States, but then let's say like the Mach-E, which electric vehicles more and more are being created and assembled by machines anyways, are they going to send that down to, you know, Mexico, as they already have, in order to be competitive? One thing is for sure, It's that for a country to have, a good amount of economic stability and, strength on the world platform, it's important to be able to switch over economically, to switch over to an independent model. And it's very difficult to be independent on your own, so you have to have trusted allies. That's why the North American Trade Agreement is beneficial. So, Ford doing business with both Canada and the US, you kind of pick who your friends are. You pick your allies, you pick your partners, and that these groups together, when, things go sour politically on a world scale, or that there's a crisis such as an earthquake or whatever it may be, whatever type of conflict or crisis may exist in the world, you need to be able to switch over with your allies to, full independent production of necessary components such as microchips. So long story short, Ford as well as governments are looking to bring microchip production back home. It's going to be needed that this production can be scaled up during times of conflict, that there's always like a minimum production. So we'll see if lawmakers make it a requirement for certain companies to maintain a minimum production of, let's say, microchips, so that way if there is conflict and those microchips are needed for essential vehicles in regards for the economy's well-being or for a nation's security, so army machines, Army, Navy and whatnot, Air Force, if those machines obviously they need a lot of microchips as well. So it's all about just a proper defense strategy. So hopefully Ford and GM will be part of that strategy to be able to ramp up production during times of conflict. And Ford, though, on our end, what is the official news? Well, Jim Farley said that microchip shortages could go into and throughout, my understanding is throughout 2023. And I know for certain types of microchips, certain types of chips, Volkswagen is talking about 2025. So production definitely needs to be ramped up there. We'll see how these affect our vehicles, because this is an ongoing story that I will continue to cover to make sure that I'm helpful. That's why I saved the news of the earthquake in Japan, 7.4 magnitude earthquake that did shut down 3 of Renesas factories. I wanted to bring you the news when I could actually either say, this is the official bad news, it's closed for 3 months, or like I'm saying now, the last 2 remaining factories should be up and running pretty much up to normal capacity by the 23rd of March. So overall, good news. Bad news was the earthquake, but it looks like they'll work through it. Now I'm going to wish you all more cars and more power, and check out some great and interesting vehicles. So we got to hit the beach to check out these vehicles. We're going to meet up with locals because we're letting the locals loose on the channel. Please like and subscribe. Hey honey, what are you eating again?
Ice cream, peaches and strawberry.
You like your ice cream, don't you?
Yeah, this one's so good. That's the best here in the Ormond Beach.
Because when you subscribe, it helps feed a French Canadian. Take care. Have a great week. Thanks for watching.